and enclosed 30 acres. Today it is a park with a small museum outside of its single opening. At the time of survey, its moat was 13 feet deep. The wall above the moat measured 16 feet in height, it measuring 29 feet from bottom of moat to top of wall. This view is from the bottom of the moat. At right is the slope of the wall, 29 feet higher than where we stand. At the left is the level ground, 13 feet above where we stand. The tree at right is 3½ feet in diameter. Notice the curvature of the moat and wall. This view is from the top of the wall. Notice the depth to the bottom of the moat and the curvature of the works. Now let us give some thought as to how this edifice would have looked at the time of the builders. The moat would have been deeper with steeper walls. The walls above it would have been higher and steeper also. Another thing to consider is the trees and undergrowth that exist today. We trust that nothing would be left standing that might hide an enemy. At the top of the wall would have been works of timbers with pickets on those timbers. One outstanding difference about this works is that the moat is on the inside. Moats were used to help keep the enemy exposed and unable to force the wall. This work was evidently built to keep someone inside, not outside, a logical place for prisoners of war. Today, the local populace and visitors climb the steps and use the path along the top of the wall for jogging and walking. The best time to visit this works is in the early spring, before the undergrowth disguises its true magnificence. Just outside of this works were two walls which still exist partially. They were once part of a pair of walls leading to a square works and beyond to a semi-round enclosure with burial mounds inside. Then on in other directions, lending some credence to the supposition that this 6 square mile area was part of a larger set of works. From the square, a pair of walls led to the great octagon with circle works that we will study next. The great octagon with attached circle are today used as a golf course. At the time of survey, the circle had a diameter of 1,050 feet and a circumference of 2,880 feet. It was a true circle and enclosed 20 acres. Its walls were 6 feet in height. This is a view of the inside of the circle's walls. The wall in the foreground is one of the parallel walls leading toward the octagon. Note the golf cart path in the foreground and the circular wall beyond the golf green. Here is a view of the 2 parallel walls leading toward and into the great octagon. Note the golfer's hole flag in the foreground and the tower mound with the tree growing out of it in the background. This view is from the tower mound back towards the circle. Note the overlook tower on the left. It is for the convenience of visitors. This is a second view from the top of one of the parallel walls leading from the circle to the great octagon. The walls are 300 feet in length. Looking at the survey drawing of the great octagon and beginning at the opening, the walls go left and right. This is a closer look at the tower mound that was used to guard the larger opening. None of the mounds guarding the 8 openings contained any burials or artifacts, so they were tower platforms for guarding the openings. The area enclosed in the octagon is 50 acres. We will now move along the wall to the left. As we approach the end of the wall, we can see the next opening from the inside. This is a view from the outside of that opening, looking in at the guard tower mound. Here the wall turns sharply right towards the next opening. This is a view along the outside of that wall towards the next opening. And this view is along the top of that same wall. This view is from the outside of the next opening, and just across from this opening towards the northwest lies Raccoon Creek. This is a view of Raccoon Creek and the inhabitants' access to it. The walls then continue on around in the same measured way until we come to a small circular work outside of the octagon's wall at the opposite side from the Raccoon Creek opening. This circular work is approximately 125 feet in diameter with only one opening. This view is from the inside of the circle looking out. At the left in the background is the wall of the octagon. This small circle was possibly a livestock pen. We note that there were no moats around the octagon or the attached circle works or the walls leading to or away from them as shown in the survey drawing. That the walls had timbered palisades seemed to be sufficient protection, especially as there were hilltop fortifications within 2 miles of these works. Let us now look at one of the largest hilltop fortifications of the Nephite era in Ohio. It is today called Fort Ancient and lies in Warren County, Ohio, on the east bank of the Little Miami River, 230 feet above its waters. Its circumference is over 3½ miles and encloses 126 acres. The walls of this fort contain approximately 172 million cubic feet of tough diluvial clay. We view the northwestern entrance of the fortification in the early morning hours, the climb up from the river being fairly steep. Upon entering the fort, we view the entrance from the inside. Note the height of the walls at this entrance. As we move to our right or north, approximately 150 feet, we turn to the east along the north wall. This wall is strong, 8 to 15 feet in height, and broken by 9 or 10 openings, which we will discuss later. The slope below the outside of this wall is approximately 37 degrees to the valley floor 200 feet below. We now turn right or south along the east wall for a distance of approximately 300 feet until we come to the northeastern entrance. Outside of this entrance are 2 mounds. The highway runs east and west through Fort Ancient and out between these 2 mounds. From these 2 mounds, there were 2 walls extending to the east for a distance of 1,350 feet and ending in a circle with a mound in the center. From a military standpoint, it would appear that the 3 mounds held watchtowers, as this area to the east was the only gently sloping one approaching the fort and one that an enemy would have easy access to. The walls at this, the northeast entrance, are approximately 23 feet high and represent the highest wall of the fort. At the exterior base of this wall, and running for 200 to 300 feet both to the north and to the south of the entrance, was a 10-foot deep moat which protected the wall and narrowed the entrance. At the time of survey, it was full of water. It has since been filled in by those who have farmed the ground. Moving south from the gateway along the top of this, the east wall, we view the most impressive walls of the entire fortification. We now move on from here further to the south into the middle fort or center of Fort Ancient. It is believed that Fort Ancient was built in 3 sections or stages, the north fort, which we first entered, being the last or newest, the middle fort, the area which we are now approaching, being next in age, and the south fort being the oldest.